We want to talk about exams, certification, and some of the issues that may come up if you're not on time. So I see Rohan and Sarah are there. I don't know if Yedil is there, but at least we have Rohan and Sarah. So let's start with you, Rohan. Why don't you introduce yourself and then start the your perspective on this session?
Thank you, Pawan sir. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this webinar by USMLE Sarthi. My name is Rohan Kumar, and I'm an IMG from India. I was brought up in Oman, and I'm a medical school graduate from Postgraduate Institute of Medical Sciences, Rohtak, with diverse clinical experience in India, Oman, and the United States. I am a current applicant for the Internal Medicine 2024 Residency Match, and my interest includes snorkeling and stamp collection. Uh, We have an amazing panel today. I believe that the topic, why starting early is the key to success, is very important and crucial for all IMGs. I am going to discuss with you the importance of ECFMG certification and other pathway options. Let me begin by saying that most US residency programs require IMG applicants to be ECFMG certified prior to application submission. Although some programs may mention otherwise, without ECFMG certification, your application may not be considered complete and you may not be eligible for interviews. Why is that? Because most IMGs who will be applying will be ECFMG certified, and the programs look at your scores, which will be transmitted to programs as your transcript only when you are ECFMG certified. It is thus advisable and necessary to plan and complete the exams well in advance to ensure a smooth and successful application. Speaking of pathways, currently there are six pathways. Pathway one, which says that you are already licensed to practice medicine in another country. This is the one that is followed by most IMGs from India and other Southeast Asian countries. Pathway 2 is already passed an objective structured clinical examination for medical licensure administered by an acceptable medical school. Pathway 3 is medical school accreditation by agency recognized by World Federation for Medical Education. Medical school students who are not yet graduates use Pathway 3. Pathway 4 is medical school accredited by an agency like NCFMEA, that is the National Committee of Foreign Medical Education. Pathway 5 is medical school issues degree jointly with US accredited medical school. And Pathway 6 is evaluation of clinical patient encounters by licensed physicians. Now, I've seen some IMGs using Pathway 6 for certification during some of my rotations, and it is for those candidates who do not meet the requirements for Pathway 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. To meet the requirements for Pathway 6, an applicant's clinical skills must be evaluated by licensed physicians by the mini CEX or mini clinical evaluation exercise examination, which can be administered by any practicing physician in the United States. Speaking more on ECFMG certification and timeline, the process usually works. I will describe what it was last year. The pathways usually open in June, beginning of June. The ERAS token purchase starts in the end of June. Last year, the token purchase started on 28th June. Then you can start filling your application and submitting documents. ERAS application submission usually opens beginning of September and ends last week of September. Last year, the date was 27th September, and then the programs start reviewing applications after that. Now, when applying as an IMG, as I mentioned earlier, it is very important to be ECFMG certified prior to the application deadline. So, let me explain the steps. You have to apply for pathways. When you apply for a pathway, most IMGs follow pathway 1, where you have to request your home country licensing authority to send your license to ECFMG via email. You have to have your OET score, and only then is your pathway approved. Now, to factor all of this into your timeline, the things to keep in mind are that the OET results take about 12 working days to come, as is mentioned on their website. That is about 2 to 3 weeks. And the licensing authority of your country can also take time to send an email to the ECFMG. Another thing to note is that OET is only held on two particular times in a month, It's usually the first and the third Wednesdays and Thursdays of every month. It is not like step one, step two that you can have a preferred date. After all the requirements for ECFMG certification are complete, it may take up to 2 weeks for ECFMG certification. Usually in June and mid-July, there is scoring delays for step twos and the results are delayed. So the point that I'm trying to make when I'm saying all of this is that all of this should also factor into your timeline and plan for ECFMG certification. Your ultimate aim should be to be ECFMG certified before the application submission deadline, along with focusing on your research, USC, and everything. I hope this information is useful to all of you who are planning to apply this year. And congratulations to all of you who have matched, and best of luck to all the applicants.
Uh, Thank you very much, Rohan. I appreciate this extensive kind of certification overview. Let's move on. I think Dr. Leena Varshney is there. She is going to also speak about, I think, importance of step three. So, Leena, welcome. Why don't you introduce yourself and then talk about it?
Hi, everyone. I'm Leena. I'm originally from Toronto. I did my nursing for undergraduate degree as for my undergraduate, and then went to the Caribbean for medical school. I originally matched into internal medicine. Wasn't a good fit for me, and rematched into psychiatry. So I'll be starting that position off cycle soon. And so the importance of step three. So the first time I applied for the match, I didn't have step three. And I still did get interviews. And I think if your application is really good, then as in like you have your step one and step two scores are good, your rotations, your entire application, like there's no gaps, there isn't many red flags, then I think you will get interviews, as I did. But the second time around, it's very important to have step three. And I think the importance is so that program directors know that you're not going to fail it while in their program, or you're not going to like take your time to take it, because they usually like to have your step three done during intern year. So it really just guarantees them that you're going to pass the board exams later on and like not have any problems during your years 1, 2, 3, and 4 if you have a fourth year. So I want to talk a little bit about the process. So once you are ECFMG certified, I would go right ahead and apply for step three. I believe it's like $800-900. So there is a little bit of a process and there's a little bit of a wait. So I think there could be any 2 to 4 weeks of a wait to get your permit to write the exam. Once you find a good window, I preferably, if you're not in medical school, then I would try to take it before you apply to the cycle, like have your score out, at least by September before you apply, because scores coming back can also, I think, take 2 to 3 months. But if you're in medical school and you're just graduating, you're finishing your step two, then, I think they say before the rank deadline. So once you have a window and you're ready and you're, studying for it, I would just say start, studying for it early. The way that you'd want to study for it is, so step three really looks at like the questions. Actually, here, I'll start talking about the resources first. So I use UWorld step three. I use the UWorld biostats. I use the CCS cases. I used UWorld CCS, Archer, Crush CCS, and then there's, I think I mentioned CCS cases online. So out of all those resources, what's really important is the UWorld step three, the UWorld biostats, and the Crush, the CCS cases, the simulation platform online. And I found Archer to be a really good resource. So much of step three, the focus was on biostats and ethics. So I feel like if you have a good biostats base and you have a good ethics base, because most of the exam questions on the actual exam, each block I had there was 10 questions biostats related. And so that I feel for this step three makes the bulk of your exam along with the CCS portion. So I feel like mastering your biostats for the question portion, because it's a 2-day exam, would be good. And then for the CCS component, kind of coming out of step two and graduating medical school, you really don't know like what the format is and what the structure is. So Archer really teaches you how to use the software, what orders you need to put in. And so it's a really good learning tool. And then from that, you just practice on UWorld CCS, on the CCS cases. But yeah, so the exam itself is it's a 2-day exam. It's pretty grueling. I would say it's 9 hours each day. And the first day you can book the first and second day 2 weeks apart. And so I would say, just start studying for step 3 and try to get that out of the way as soon as possible. You don't want to do that in intern year.
Thank you very much, Leena. I appreciate, and of course, you'll be back in the next subsequent sessions as well. Let's continue on the step 3 discussion, and we do have Sarah Martinez, who got a lot of interviews based on the step 3. So, Sarah, welcome, and why don't you introduce yourself and then talk about importance of step 3 in your journey.
Good morning, Pavan. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to share with you my experience in this process and my success with the step 3. I am an international medical graduate from Brazil. I graduated 14 years ago. In December 2009, I had an extensive primary care experience for 12 years in my home country before coming to the United States. I applied for the match in 2023, but I didn't match even with 5 interviews. I had a good score, I didn't have fail, I had good rotations at that time, but I didn't have the step 3, so I was not ranked to match. After I didn't match, I scheduled a one-on-one session with a highly experienced mentor of Sarthi team, and she said, Sarah, you didn't match because you don't have the step 3. And then I worked on that lack of step 3, and this time I could have 23 interviews this season. I got 12 interviews for family medicine, 10 interviews for internal medicine, and 1 for transitional year, and I received an off-cycle offer last week. During my interviews, many interviewers said that's a good thing that you, as an old grad, have the step 3 score. I worked on applying with my step 3 score. For those who are old grads, that's very important to apply with a step 3 score. Don't let to do your step 3 after you applied. Have your step 3 before the programs open your application so that you have more chances to be invited for the interviews. But if you cannot apply with your step 3 score for some reason, try to have your step 3 score until the end of December, because those who have the step 3 after December, the score will not be released before the rank or the list done in February. So be attentive to the dates of the results of step 3, work according to those dates. And also, the step 3 score is used by the programs to rank you to match. If you have interview invitations as I had during my first attempt to match, and you don't have your step 3 score, probably the programs will not rank you old grad to match. So the way the fresh grads and the old grads navigate this process is somehow different. A fresh grad can match without a step 3 score. I know many cases, but I know few cases of old grads that match without a step 3 score. So that's the tips that I have to give you regarding the step 3.
Thank you very much, Sarah. And for those of you who are interested in our match plans and interview prep and all, Swati can send you the link. So take a look because this would be the right time to join for next season. So Swati, if you can share that link. Moving on, I know Yedil, you are on. So we wanted to round up this session by talking about step one and CK and when you should take it and the entire application process. So Yedil, I know you wanted to talk about that. So why don't you introduce yourself and talk about your experience of the steps exams?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Yedil. I came from Kazakhstan in 2019 right after I have graduated. I took my time to prepare for step one. My step one score was decent, 246, and after that I prepared for step two, which was 252. And my main hiccup and talking point is gonna be importance of planning for application before you spend your money. So basically, I took my OET exam and they did not arrive in time. So what happened basically is I took my step one in April, in March, then step two in June, and I did not take into account application process, preparing of application errors. And also what I noticed is that a lot of international medical graduates may have hard time understanding local American culture. And even with good scores, you can still get zero interviews as a new fresh graduate if you don't pay enough attention to application errors preparation.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Yedil. I appreciate. And I am looking at some of the questions. We will get to it. I think Leena and Sarah, some of this is for you, off-cycle positions and how do they work. So we'll talk about it as soon as we get to that session. But are there any questions on step three or just the overall timeline before we move to the second session? If not, there's a 10-minute break after three sessions, and then you can ask your questions. So we'll keep looking at the chat if you guys have a question. Okay, one question. How much time do we need before step three? So maybe Leena or Sarah, you can answer.
So I think a good 6 months if you're an IMG, because you do have to learn a new format and you have to learn software. But once you get in the hang of things, I wouldn't, it depends also what score you want. If you want a higher score, then you have to study a little longer. You're putting in 8 to 12-hour days. So I spent 6 months to a year, but a lot of that was learning the format. And I would just say, just pass this exam and get it out of the way. So I would personally feel it doesn't matter what score you get, just pass the exam.
Yeah. Thank you. Sarah, question for you. Is step three required for an older graduate and all? I mean, I know you answered it, but how important is it for an older graduate?
Well, that's not an official obligation, an official requirement to old grads or fresh grads to have the step three, okay? That's an obligation after you match during the residency. But if you have the step three, you are going to be more competitive because you have one more score on your application. Now the step one is pass or fail. It's not a numeric score anymore. So you have the step two that became the most important step when we are talking about scores. And the step three is your chance to get a higher score. If you had a low score during the step two, it's also a chance to get a higher score if you had a fail in any of the steps. And if you had good scores in the step two, it's one more chance to get another good score during the step three to state how updated you are and how you are a good test taker, because the programs have this concern that if you are going to pass in the board of your specialty, and if you have good scores in step three, you can show the programs you are a good test taker. Another thing, is that for old grads, we know that in practice, step 3 is a must do. So if you are graduated for more than 5 years, please take the step 3 before your application.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you so much for watching. We hope that video provided valuable insights for your journey. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram and Twitter. And check out our website for details on how we can guide you to a successful match.